All right, I'm back. I got all the tape on the cabinet, and now I'm gonna put some paper over all this. I have a couple different size papers I'm gonna use to kind of cover this up. Just kind of cut it a little big, and then you can trim it afterwards. Really no signs to this. Just want to get the holes covered up. So if you're careful, you can just push on this tape, and your paper will stick right to it. Go ahead and do it all the way around, and then you can carefully take your knife and trim it back. Push it down again, make sure it's down there. All right, that one's done. Same thing, lay it into the tape. If you have to, you can go on the back side and kind of push it into it. Obviously, once you get to the last piece, you won't be able to reach inside the cabinet to do that. But for now, where it can. Make sure you guys use good masking tape. Don't buy cheap stuff. It'll just end up falling off on you. Even the good stuff falls off sometimes. All right. Use a wider piece for where the monitor is. Kind of eyeball it here. Spray boot's a little dusty and dirty right now. I haven't cleaned it since the last time I painted. Not a big deal. This is just filler primer. I'll clean it up afterwards when I'm getting ready to paint. This piece I can use for up top. Try to pull your paper tight so it's not blowing all over the place when you're spraying primer. The speaker holes down here, I just put tape in there. Kind of a waste of tape, but it's just quicker to do it that way. Front's all taped off, just gotta go around the back, do the back door area. Get this covered up. Might as well use this one factory straight edge so we don't have to cut all four sides. Yeah, I cut a little too much paper, but that's all right. Now once I get this cabinet and primer, I'm going to let it set for a day or two. I'm going to get some car parts in here and paint, and then we will get this, after this is painted, we will get this cabinet down into the basement. I'll probably let it sit down there for a few days while I start on the Tapper cabinet, because I want to get that started. So I can get that painted. I'm actually having a New Year's party this year on the 30th, so I'm trying to get a few of these games done for the basement. Maybe this coming up weekend, I will do a tour of the basement and what games I have down there. I still have a couple other games I need to restore that are not in this building that I showed you on the first video. They're actually in my front garage. I have a Nintendo Versus cabinet, which is a side-by-side one with the two 18, 19-inch monitors, whatever those are, 20-inch monitor, I think it's a 20-inch monitor. One side's Excitebike and the other side is Super Mario Brothers. The cabinet is in extremely rough shape. The whole bottom's kind of busted up and stuff like that. I got it for $100. It came with everything in it. Circuit boards, monitors, everything. One of the two sides were working. Super Mario Brothers was working. Excitebike was not working. I ended up sending it out to a guy to get repaired. He just messaged me this morning, so I think he's got it all fixed. So that'll be another video in the future. That cabinet is huge. It's gonna be a fun one to work on. Gonna have to probably rebuild the whole bottom of the cabinet. And also I have a Pong clone up there. Paddle Battle was the name of that game. I have a couple circuit boards for it, but I just can't seem to get it to work right. Trying to find a working circuit board or somebody that could fix the one that I currently have. If you guys know anybody, please let me know. But I'm gonna go ahead and stop this video for a couple minutes. I'm gonna clean up, and then we're gonna come back. I'm gonna show you how I wipe the cabinet down, and we'll get spray and primer. Alright, I'm back. It's gonna be a little loud in here. I have the heater going. It's currently 60 degrees in here. The cabinet surface is at 67.8. I usually like to have my surfaces at about 75 to 80 degrees. Getting these, the surface temperature up definitely helps the paint lay on smoother, cure better, less runs. You're less likely to get a run in your paint job just monitor this over the next couple minutes until we see it's already up to 71.6. So it shouldn't take too long to get this to where we need to get it. Always take measurements of a couple different spots on the cabinet, because just because this side's 70 some degrees doesn't mean the other side is. So we'll come over here. This side's 69.2 degrees. So it is going to vary a little bit. But it usually warms up pretty quick. It only takes a couple minutes. Stop this for a couple minutes and I'll be back. Okay, while the cabin is warming up, I'm going to go in the mixing room here and show you what I'm going to use for primer. I just use Summit Racing paint, primers and clear coat for these arcade cabinets. I think it's really good stuff. I've had really good luck with it. I've probably been using it for about 8-10 years now. That can looks to be about empty. We're going to have to open up a new can. I think this is empty. We're going to use a medium hardener. They make it in slow, medium, and fast. We're going to run with medium today. And we're going to use a medium reducer as well. Let's get this opened up. As you can see from sitting how separated the primer is. You can see the clear on the top and then the primer underneath. We're going to go ahead and mix that. Put this mixing top into here. Just getting the leftover primer out of this can. Set this down into it. Now, the best way to dispose of this stuff is to leave this can open. Let the little bit that's left in there dry out. Once it's dry out, you can throw it away. You don't want to put it in your garbage wet. Come over to this little mixing rack we have here. I'm going to stick this on here. It slides right in there, and I'm going to put it on for 10 minutes. And what that's going to do is, if you can see it or not, just mixing the can. It's got that paddle inside that's just spinning around. Another thing I always like to forget is this right here is a water separator. This keeps water out of your lines when you're painting. You got to turn that on. It runs on refrigerant. So now I'm going to take this empty can and just put it off to the side so that it can dry out. Okay, that's going to take 10 minutes to stir. Let's go back out in the booth and we'll see how our temperatures are doing out there. degrees, more than enough temperature. 85.4. This side's going to be warmer. This side of the spray booth always is warmer, 91. So now what we're going to do is we're going to open the filters. And we're going to turn on the exhaust fans, which are over here. Just have a switch right here. Set my camera up behind the cabinet to paint to primer because I don't want to get overspray on my phone. So I'm going to leave it right here for now. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you how I wipe the cabinet off. I'm going to blow it off one more time with a blow gun, and then we will start wiping it down with some wax and grease remover. Cabinet is all wiped down. Now, if this was going to be painted, I would use a tack cloth after I wax and grease remove it. Not worried about it with the filler primer. It is going to be fine. Doesn't matter if you get a little dust in the filler primer because you have to sand it anyways. Let's go back in the mixing room and we will get some primer mixed up. This primer is a 4-to-1, and I usually do about a half of reducer just to thin it down a little bit. I just use a cheap Harbor Freight spray gun for filler primer. It has a 1.7 or a 1.8 tip. I think it's a 1.8 tip in it, which is plenty big enough to spray this primer. This is a really thick, high build primer. That's why I said I'm gonna put 3 coats on the side, and what that's gonna do is really build up that side, fill in any of those little nicks and stuff from the particle board. Particle board always has a little bit of a rough texture to it. These 3 coats are going to smooth that right out. Still might see a little texture in the filler primer, but once we sand the filler primer down, I usually will hit it with a 180 grit and a 320. 320 is more than sufficient for these type of things that I'm doing because it gets a satin clear. A satin clear really doesn't show much because it's not glossy, so it just gives it a nice overall smooth semi-gloss finish. So we're going to go ahead now and mix up some primer. Grab a cup here. I use disposable paint cups from 3M. So once you get done spraying, you just have an empty cup to throw away. Cleaning the spray guns, I have a gun cleaning cabinet there, which recycles all the cleaner. So there's not a lot of waste involved with any of this stuff. So we're going to go ahead and get this mixed up. One thing with these cups are they have a built-in strainer in the lids. When you're spraying filler primer, those lids like to get clogged up. This filter likes to get clogged up. So what I do for just filler primer, not for paint or anything like that, I go ahead and I pop this out of there. I just rip this off the lid. We don't need this. I'll strain the primer before I put it in here. But anytime you put base coat or clear, make sure this is in here. For primer, we just get rid of it. This liner, this is a reusable cup, has a hole in the bottom of it. This liner goes inside of it, like that. I mix my primer into here. This is a bigger cup. This holds 32 ounces. This only holds about 21 ounces or so. So I mix this up full, and then after this is empty, I'll just go ahead and refill it with more. I will use a paper strainer just to strain the primer in case there's any big clumps or anything like that inside the primer. Sometimes that happens, or sometimes your mixing lid, you go to pour it and a clump will fall off. I usually try to clean the clumps off of the mixing lid before I use it, but sometimes you get in a hurry and you forget. Once you mix your primer, you want to really stir it well. Make sure you stir in all your hardener and reducer. So let's go ahead and get this out of here. And we're going to mix this up 4-to-1. These cups do have a 4-to-1 reading on here. 4-to-1-to-1. I'm going to do 4-to-1 to a half. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and use these ounces right here. I'm going to fill it up to 20. Then I'm going to fill it up to 25 with hardener because it's a 4-to-1. So 20 ounces of primer, which will equal 5 ounces of hardener. So there is no 25, there's a 26 and a 24, so we're going to split it right in the middle. And then because I've done this for such a long time, that I know that from this, between the 24 and 26 to the bottom lip of this cup is about 5, about a half, 4-to-1 to a half. So let's go ahead and fill this up to 20 ounces. Get it up to 20 here. See how a little piece of dirt actually just fell in there from the lid. And that's one of the main reasons why you want to strain this stuff. You get one of those stuck in your spray gun, it's not going to be good. It's going to be a pain in the butt to clean it out. It's going to stop you from doing what you're doing. Just take the extra step and make sure you strain this stuff. So we're going to stop right on 20. Right there. We're going to take it between the 24 and 26 with the hardener. Go slow. It's okay if you over pour a little bit, but you don't want to go too far. Now, what I like to do before I put the reducer in there, I'm going to stir this. I want to get this primer and hardener mixed together. And then we will go ahead and mix in a little reducer. It's funny because the hardener at first kind of just sits on the top of the primer because this primer is such a thick primer that it likes to just sit on top, so you really got to stir it in there. All high build primers act like this. Doesn't matter what brand you have. Like I said, I'm really happy with these Summit Racing primers and paints. I think they work extremely well. I actually painted one of my cars with it. 73 Dodge Dart, plum crazy purple. I could show it to you sometime. That was painted probably 7-8 years ago. It looks just as good as the day it was painted. I've never had to re-wet sand and buff it. I wet sanded and buffed it once when it was painted, and I've never had to redo it. It's never shrank back. I've had 0 issues with their Summer Racing Clear. So I'm a believer in it. I use it quite often, and I just like it. And it's really affordable. Some of these clears are $400 to $800 a gallon, which to me is just not worth it, because everything that I paint, arcade cabinets or cars, they're not in the sun all the time. My old cars go out, 10, 20 times a year. So the cheaper clears have a, what do I want to say here? The cheaper clears have a less of a UV rating than the more expensive clears. It's really about all the difference I've ever found between them, to be honest with you. I was using a real expensive PPG clear for years, and it would shrink back on me. 6 months later, I would have dull spots in it, and I'd have to wet sand and rebuff it. I've not had that issue with this stuff. So I'm just going to go ahead and finish fixing this up here for a couple minutes, and we will get the spray gun out, get it filled up, get you guys back out in the spray booth, and we will start painting it, or priming it. I do wear a respirator while I'm painting. Even though the spray booth does a really good job of exhausting fumes, you still should wear one. I apologize, it's going to be loud in there. It's probably even a little loud in here. Nothing I can do about that. The heater's just loud. This is the respirators I wear. These are a dual filter respirator. These have an inner cartridge and an outer filter. Like I said, we're going to use a cheap spray gun for the primer, which, let me take you over here, I'll show you what we're going to use. It's kind of tight in here with this tripod, so bear with me. Okay, now let me show you what I got going on here. These are all SATA spray guns, 2000 and 3000, SATA 2000s and 3000s. This is what I use for clear. This is the cheap primer gun I'm talking about, Harbor Freight. It was 50 bucks. Came with another gun as well, a little touch-up gun, which is up there. But there's no reason to have an expensive spray gun for filler primer. And to be honest with you, this came with a 1.4 and a 1.8 tip. There's no reason why you can't paint your cabinet with this $49 spray gun. I've done it before. I purposely bought this spray gun from Harbor Freight for $12 and painted with it, and it actually works. So if people make fun of you because you don't have a $500 or $1,000 spray gun, you don't always need it. Especially for arcade cabinets and stuff like that. You don't need it. It's just not worth it. So don't go thinking you need to expend a ton of money on this stuff. This is a Harbor Freight gun. I use it for clear all the time. It was $250, and it sprays awesome. It's got a great spray pattern and all that. Obviously, it's not as good as, one of these over here, these SATAs, which I've had for 25 years. This is a SATA Jet 3000 HVLP spray gun. I have 3 different versions of this. I do use these from time to time for clear and base coat. They're getting old, they need rebuilt. So I really need to go through them, take them all apart, and rebuild them. So we're gonna go over here now. As you can see on this one, I'm not running a regulator. I'm just using the internal regulator that comes with the gun. Plenty good enough. So let's go over here and let's get this filled up. I'm gonna mix that primer one more time. Just to make sure it's all stirred up. Pour it in here. These cups do have mixing ratios on it, but the problem is, oh, you know what, I screwed up. See, I'm talking and I screwed up. We gotta pour this back into here. I forgot to strain it. Like I was just telling you guys, it's really important to strain your stuff. Don't get distracted. I obviously just got distracted and almost screwed up. Because I know there's a clump in there because I watched it happen when I was pouring the primer into the cup. So I'm going to put this paper strainer here. Now, like I said, all your paint and stuff, all your extra old materials, leave them open in a can or a container and let them dry out. Once they're dried out, you can throw them in the garbage. Don't go pouring this stuff in your yard or anything like that. It's bad. Spilled a little bit because I had to pour it out of the cup and back into the cup. I filled it a little too high, but it should be fine. Now this just clips over top. Take this off. We don't need that. That's just a cap. This cap is if, let's say, you're spraying some base coat before you clear and you want to save it, you can just put this cap on and save it. This screws on, this collar screws on, and what this does is holds the two together. So now we can go like that. Make sure that's on right. There we go. See, it wasn't clipped down all the way. Then we'll stick this on here, like tight. Don't want to go too tight, strip the threads. This has a special fitting on the end of the gun, slips over this container like this, and then you turn it, and it locks in. Locks in with these two plastic tabs right here. Now your gun cup is locked into your gun. So now we're going to put my respirator on. We're going to go out there and spray some primer. Okay, now when using these liners, when you plug your air hose into your gun, hold it upside down. You want to hold this upside down until the liner collapses. And then primer starts coming out. Took about 20 ounces of primer for that first coat. I noticed there's a little bit more minor imperfections on those sides as far as the particle board being a little textured. So this next coat, I'm probably going to put it on a little bit heavier on the sides and front. Not as worried about the back. Maybe we used less than 20 ounces. We only used about 16 ounces of primer. So we're going to take the rest of this primer, put it into this cup. That primer only needs a couple minutes between coats. I believe the manufacturer is 5 to 10 minutes between coats, if I remember correctly. Just trying to get all this out of here. I should have wore gloves. I usually do wear gloves. Got distracted, forgot to put them on. I'm going to go ahead and mix up one more batch of primer, the same amount as last time. 20, 25, and then to the rim. We're going to end up having to make another video for the back door. This one's going to be too long. So we'll get this primered, and then in a little while I'll make a video of me making the back door. I probably am going to go ahead and bake this cabinet. It seems like it's pretty good. We'll get it up to like 120 degrees and we'll see how it's doing. Make sure nothing's looking weird on it or anything like that. As long as it's okay, I'll probably bring it up to 130, 140 degrees. We'll let it bake for 20 minutes and then it'll sit for, like I said, a day or two. So we brought that up to 20. We're going to take this up to 25. And you can get great results, you know, using a roller, a foam roller, and good paint from Home Depot or Lowe's. They have enamel paints that are good, that work really well. It's just going to be more time consuming. And those enamel paints, after you put a coat on, you can wet sand them. You know, you can wet sand the texture of the paint. You can wet sand the texture out of the paint, you know, and then roll another coat. And then sand it again and roll a third coat, you know, and I believe xylene or something like that you can mix with that paint to thin it down for your last coat. If you thin down your paint, you can get a smoother finish, because, you know, if your paint's real thick like this, you're using a roller. If you ever painted a house wall before, you get a ton of texture in your house wall. So by thinning the paint and making it runnier, it'll, you know, roll on smoother. Now we're going to go ahead and fill this up to that rim with reducer. Then we'll top off the spray gun cup and we'll be ready for our second coat. There's our reducer. Get this mixed up good. You can see the top's runnier than the bottom. Keep stirring it. Pretty consistent now. That looks good. I'm going to go ahead and top off this cup, and we'll have enough left over for a third coat. Take this strainer out, stick it back in this cup for now. Like I said, I'm going to spray the sides a little thicker this coat. It's always good to get your first coat a little thinner. It grabs to the cabinet, and then you can start putting on some heavier coats and not worry about running it down the side of the cabinet. I'm going to go ahead and take this paint stick and mix these two together, because obviously I had some left over from the last batch plus this new batch. So let's just mix it all together. All right. out there putting our coat on. I like to wear long sleeve shirts when I'm painting as much as possible, because you still get some overspray on you, but it's nice not to have it all stuck in your arms. I do have a spray suit that I wear when I'm painting car parts. I'll probably wear it when I go ahead to paint this cabinet, but we are on there. that was coat number 2. We're gonna let that sit for about 5 minutes and go on to the next coat. When you go to take these guns off of these cups, you gotta pull your trigger. Let the whatever fluids in the gun go back into the container. Usually you don't reuse these liners like I'm doing. Usually you'll put one liner per coat, but I don't like to waste money for stuff like that when it's just primer or base coat, same thing. It doesn't matter. As long as you can reseal it, I would just keep reusing the liner. You know, obviously once I put my last coat of primer on, it'll be ready for the garbage, but there's no point wasting a bunch of liners if you don't have to. You can see how it sucks that liner up. I just take carefully just push it back down. Go ahead and pour our last coat of primer in here. Get yourself some cardboard, put it down on your table or whatever that you're mixing on so you don't get stuff everywhere. Like I said, I should have worn gloves, but I didn't. We actually have more than another cup full, which is fine. I'm going to use it. I'll put it just on the sides and the front. So we might end up doing 4 coats. So I'm going to go ahead and stop this for a minute, get this filled up, and get ready for the next coat. coats of primer are done. Up here, it's pretty basic, pretty simple. I'll show you how I do it. I like to keep my respirator in the bag. I'm going to take this spray gun off, hold the trigger down. Put it right there for now. Take this out. Liner has a little bit of primer left. Leave it in there. Leave it just like that. It'll dry out. Once it dries out, you can throw it away. We're going to take these over to the washing cabinet here. Look, I left a cup in there. So we'll take this cup, put it in here. And a spray gun. Tie the trigger open. This hose goes into where the air goes, and then it sits on top of this. The spray gun goes right into there. The cup is sitting on top of a sprayer. We shut the lid, run it for 1 minute. I run it a few times just to make sure. All right, I ran it 4 times just to make sure that that filler primer came out. It's really thick. So go in here, take our cup out, wipe our cup off. Still a little bit on there. We'll run it 1 more time. All right, it's done. That looks much better. It takes a few times with this filler primer because it's just so thick. Wipe this off. Counter. The gun is all clean. Take this out. You have to tie the trigger open. By tying the trigger, or closed. By closing the trigger and putting this in here, it forces the cleaner through the gun and out the tip. Just gotta do is wipe it off. These are some lint-free towels. Same thing as the blue ones. Make sure we're clean in there. We are. That's it. This. Hang it back up. Now, the spray booth has been running for about 15 minutes now with the fans going at 81 degrees, 24% humidity. What we're going to do now is we're going to kick off the exhaust fans and we're going to run the temperature up to 120. We'll take a look at the cabinet and we'll probably run it up to 140. It's hard to see how smooth it is, but it laid out pretty good. Cabinet does not seem to be warping or anything like that. We're currently at 120 degrees. I'm going to go ahead and go up to 140. I think it'll be just fine. But if you look here, you can see where I had made that line, so it still looks original. It still has that line. But it's looking good. There are a few imperfections that I noticed once I sprayed primer, like this corner and stuff. I'm going to sand it down and we'll see what it looks like. There's some pitting right here still that should all sand out in the primer. If for some reason it doesn't, I'll just hit it a little bit with that glazing putty. But as you can tell, I can already touch this cabinet 15-20 minutes after I sprayed it. It's already pretty much set up, so we will let it dry overnight. This is going to end this video, and we'll go on to the next. Thanks for watching. Alright, I'm done baking it. Close enough to 140 degrees. I don't want to risk getting it any hotter than that. Nothing looks warped or anything like that. Alright, thanks again guys. If you like what you're seeing, please subscribe and like my videos. Have a good afternoon. Thanks.